Hey, welcome back to another Next.js project. Today we are going to be building this amazing web application, which is in fact a WireX app clone. I hope you guys are ready because we are going to start right now. Okay, cool. Let's start building our project. So I'm gonna grab this piece of code that you are familiar with. Let's see. TypeScript no, as lint yes, Tailwind for sure, source no, app router of course, import default I'm gonna say yes, and I want to go with this @ symbol. Now it's time to add the dependencies that we are going to need for this project. So in my case, npm I, and the first dependency that I'm going to need is React icons, and the second one is React count up. Press enter. As you can tell by the final version of our project, we're going to need plenty of images. So let's then add this. All I'm going to do is actually to copy paste the assets folder, okay, and I'm going to paste it inside my public folder. Now I have access to all the images that I need for this project. As you can check in our final version, we do not get the browser's scroll bar here, but we of course still can scroll up and down. So what I want to do now is actually to play a tiny bit with the globals.css file, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to delete all of this, not the Tailwind rules at the top of course, and I'm going to paste the code that is going to be responsible for hiding the scroll bar. Okay, cool. Okay, if we look at our final version, we see that we use a very specific color palette throughout our website, and we also get to use like gradients. There's one here and there's another one here, and this means there are several approaches to this, but in this project the approach that we are going to be taking is to actually extend the Tailwind CSS config file. So I'm actually gonna get rid of this, and I'm gonna add my custom colors object firstly, okay, and as you can see I have this naming convention, and you can have whatever naming convention suits you better, it's up to you. And we also need to have this linear gradient, so I'm gonna add another object, but notice that I'm actually extending the theme. That's what I'm doing. So when you want to extend the theme, you need to put your custom stuff inside this extend object. And this is what we need for this project. Okay, our initial project configuration is all done, so it's time for us to check what we have so far. For that, I'm going to run npm run dev, npm run dev to start our development server. And I'm gonna use localhost 3001 because 3000 is obviously taken. Boom. And let's see what we have so far. Right, this beautiful website is what we have so far. But don't worry, with your help, I'm going to turn this into this. Cool. So let's start and do this. Okay, cool. So now the first thing that I want to do is actually to get rid of this. So I'm going to navigate into my page, which is my root page. And I want to do plenty of things in this page actually. Firstly, as usual, I want to get rid of whatever it's inside this return. And I'm just going to add a div. And I'm going to type home. And I'm going to delete this. Basically, this is going to be our main file, of course, our root. And we will be creating all of our custom components, and we will be importing all of those components inside this file, and then we will render those components by order. We'll start with the arrow, then we'll go all the way down. Of course, in every page we need to have the header with the navigation and the footer. And we are going to deal with that right now. Right, time to work on the components that you normally see on every web application or website, which means the header that contains the nav bar and the navigation, and the footer. For that we need to go inside app, and inside app let's create a components folder. Inside this components folder I'm going to create two more folders, one for the header and another one for the footer. Now I'm going to be taking a different approach to what I normally do, because I'm going to be separating some information. I'm not going to put everything inside the same file. Therefore, I created these two subfolders. Okay, so the header is actually going to take a file called navlinks.js, just JS, not JSX, and I'm going to copy paste some information. Okay, we'll access this information by using the map method. Okay, so still inside the header, I now need the header.jsx file, and I'm going to use the usual shortcut. Okay, and I have my header. I'm going to leave this as it is for the moment. So the header is done. And now I need to do a very similar thing to the footer, which means I'm going to start by creating a file that I'm going to be calling footerlinks.js. And I'm actually going to copy paste this information, which is a lot more, to be honest. But don't worry, this is simple. And once again, we will be using map method to get usage of this, to get access to this. As you can see in the final version, we have plenty of links in our footer, and this is what we have. So all of this is actually coming from this file. What I'm doing is I'm separating this information, so it's easier to maintain in case we want to change this. We do not need to dive inside the JSX file. We update the links file, and that will get reflected inside the JSX. That's the goal. I think this is more scalable and more maintainable, which is the goal. Do not forget that when we are dealing with React.js at its core, one of the things that we really want to do is split things into smaller components, and sometimes even smaller components that will allow us to call one component that takes in like one or two smaller components. So we want to actually fragment the information so the code is easier to read and to maintain and to scale. Okay, cool, that out of the way. I'm just explaining you this because this is an approach that it's a bit different. I normally do it differently, but now I'm doing this way. So inside footer, I need my main file, which is going to be footer.jsx. So footer.jsx with capital, all good, RFC, the shortcut, and I have my footer ready. Okay, cool. This is done for the moment. Okay, as you can see, I went ahead after creating our header and footer components. I went ahead and opened our layout.js file, right? That you can actually find it in here, right inside the app layout.js file, and I changed the Google font. Okay, and I also imported our header and footer components. I updated my metadata, and here I added my header and my footer around my children. So basically in my web application, I will see my header and my footer on any page. That was the goal. And I of course added the Google font here, and I also added this add tag, which contains a link to the animate.css library, which is responsible for creating this basic animation on our images. Okay, so this is super simple. I'm not gonna spend much time with this. This is just a quick information for you. Now the fun really starts. Now it's time for us to work inside our custom components, and we will be importing them inside our root page from top to bottom. So this means the header is our first component, and let's do this right away. So for this to work, I'm gonna actually start by copy pasting stuff. Okay, we are using use client to change from a client component, from a server-side component into a client component, because we are gonna need to use this React hook use state. Okay, this is why we are using this string here at the top. Then we want to have access to this file where we have all our navigation links. Okay, and we will use the map method to render that on our page. Okay, it's a link, so we need to use Next.js link to send the user to whatever page, internally or externally. This is actually internal links, and these are actually external links. Okay, and we need also to use the icons. So React icons, the close icon, which is this one, and the open menu icon, which is this one. So open menu icon. That out of the way, it's time for us to work firstly on a bit of logic that we need for this component, and then the UI. So we are going to start by creating a state that is going to handle this icon basically. Okay, and after that we will create a function that will run on click. So we will want to, when the user clicks certain things, to run this function. So let's start by doing that. Now we are going to use this function that is going to be responsible to update this variable. And what I want to do is, I want when the button gets clicked or something else where I will be using this function, I want to run the function, and I want to change whatever icon it is to the opposite of it. So I'm going to negate this. This is the logic that we need. Now we need to work on the UI. So we do not need a div, we need the header HTML5 semantic tag, which is a way better option to go with. Okay. Inside the header, we're gonna have the nav tag, and let's start by styling the header firstly. Now it's time for us to use the colors that we have defined in here. Okay, we're gonna be using these colors, and I'm gonna start by giving a greenish background, and I'm actually gonna change this to our application to see things live. These are just the basic classes, and one thing that I want to mention is that this navbar, this header, it's actually fixed at the top. As you can see, when you scroll, the content goes beneath it, and that's the goal. So for now, to reach that, what I'm going to do is to use fixed top 0, left 0, and you need to provide a higher z-index. In this case, I'm going to go with z10. Okay, we are not seeing anything, of course, because we have not yet imported this component inside the root file, and we are going to do that right away. So actually, I'm going to go inside my root file, and I'm going to start importing my component, and this should work. When it comes to this header and also the footer, I will not explain things in much detail. I will pretty much write the code for you to see. And why is this? It's because I have plenty of videos dedicated to these topics inside my playlists, inside my channel. So just go for it. Actually, this navbar that we see here is based on another tutorial that I have for a navbar. So if you want to know things in detail, you should check those videos. I want to keep this one a bit more generic and not so focused on the how to build a navbar and the footer and all of that, because that's very time consuming. Okay, so let's continue, let's carry on with this. So our header is actually in place. We see nothing because we do not have any content for the header, but we have imported that already, so it should be all good. So let's continue, and now I'm going to take the chance and I want to actually style this navbar so I do not forget. And this time I'm going to go with a Tailwind CSS class, which is going to be the max width of 7 XL. And I'm going to show you in a moment why this is so important. So we now see, of course, our header because we have content, but this is not the content that we want to have inside our header. We actually want to use this, and this is not an image, this is an SVG file, okay, that I added in here. So that's what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to get rid of this, and I'm going to use my link component that takes a href, and because it's the logo, you normally want to send your user to the home page when someone clicks there. And I'm also gonna style this class name and flex items center. Okay, and I'm gonna copy paste the SVG, which is quite long piece of code, as you can see. So yeah, not going to focus much on that. And what I want to say is that on smaller screens, I want this to help me to close the navigation. I'm going to show you. So on smaller screens, we get the logo here and we get the icon and the button. And if we click here, for example, two things are going to happen. I click here, I am taken to this page, in this case to this part of our page, and this will automatically close for me. So I click here, boom, and this happens. I open it again, and what I wanted to say is that because we are dealing with the logo and we have built this function, I want on click, if someone clicks this logo, I want to close this. Okay, so I click here, boom, closes and takes me to the top. Okay, that's what we are trying to accomplish here. And that means for this link, for this logo, this one, I want to add an on-click event, and I want to pass this function. It's all good. Okay, cool. That part is done. So now it's time for us to start focusing on the next step, which is we need to start building. We do not have any sort of navigation yet, but we are gonna build like a navigation for larger screens, and then we'll have a separate navigation for smaller screens. But let's start with the larger screens. And as you can see, I added this, and I'm mapping through this information here, which is the JS file that we have inside header, so my nav links. So let me firstly open this. So we now get access to these 3 links because these links are coming from my file here. So actually, in fact, if I change this to whitexcard2, see, it updates. That's the goal. We are separating things. So if we want to manage this, add, remove, edit any link, we do it here and not inside the JSX file. Okay, this is why we separated things like this. Okay, cool. So let me put this back. And now I need another div. So basically, this div, as you can see, will be visible only on a certain screen sizes. So in this case, it's the LG breakpoint. Okay, from LG onwards, we show these navigation links like this. But if you are on smaller screens, we now see nothing, but we want to see something else. We want to see more information. Okay. In this case, we also need to add the buttons because we have these buttons. So we added these links, but we also need to add these buttons. That's what we need to do before moving on to other stuff. So I'm actually gonna copy paste another div. As I said to you, I'm not gonna bother explaining you this because I have videos dedicated to this. Okay. And now I have my logo, my navigation links, and my buttons. And this is for larger screens. Time to consider our smaller screens. We need to, on a smaller screen, like now, to display the icon, this icon right here. And then when the icon gets clicked, we need to do stuff. Okay? So let's start working on that part right now. As you can see, now we have a bit of code, which is a div, and now we have this icon. And when I click this icon, the other icon gets shown, it gets displayed. So we are handling this bit. And for that, when we click this div, we are using the function that we have defined earlier. And this function, as I explained it also earlier, when we click the icon, we change whatever icon to the opposite of it. So now it's open icon, I click and I get close icon. It's close icon, I click and I get open icon. That's it. Time to think about the navbar when dealing with smaller screens. Okay. So as you can see, I added this div. Okay. And this div actually contains a bunch of things. But before we focus on that, I am noticing that this alignment is not good, is not correct. So if we check, we do not have things in place. I think I'm centering things and I need to justify not to the center, but I think, yeah, I think it's here. Not center, but between. And there you go. So it has fixed my problem. So now things are correct. So on smaller screens, I do get my icon. I can click to open this. I can close to open this. And then on larger screens, I get the navigation and the buttons and all of that. And of course, I also get the buttons on smaller screen. Okay, so this is done. But let me explain you just a tiny bit what I did. Okay, so what I did was I added this last div, okay? Width is full and all of that. So, okay. So, and one more time, now I'm inside the smaller screens, which means this information, okay? So small screens, it's up to the breakpoint. Until we see this icon, it's still a small screen, and then breaks to another breakpoint, and we see the information displayed differently on the screen. So, and I'm using all of that. One more time, I'm mapping through my information. I showed you this already. And what I'm doing one more time is also on click, run the same function. So nothing new. And then this is to display this div is actually displaying whatever links I have inside my JS file. These are the links, the same thing, and then the buttons are actually inside this div. Right, now that our header component is up and running, it's time for us to move on to the next component, which is the hero component. And as you can see, the header is the exact same thing. This line over here, this border, is actually coming from the hero component that we are about to build. Okay, but apart from that, it's the exact same thing. So let's continue, and now it's time for us to move on. So I'm going to close this one in here, and I am going to create another component, and this component I'm going to call it the hero component. So this is a common convention, I believe. So I'm going to go inside my components folder, of course, and I'm going to create a hero.jsx, and I'm going to use the shortcut, the usual one. My computer is damn slow because it's about to die, unfortunately, so sorry for that. And I know, so I do not forget, I'm going to import this right away. So I'm going to import what? Hero. Cool. Let's now work on this. So, what do we want to do? We want to have the hero component, and this hero component is a bit complex. I mean, it's not complex, but there's stuff to go to do here. The hero component, it's one thing, but this component is actually calling another component, which is this button that I called a call to action, CTA, because as you can see, I have this button here, but I also have it there, and I also have it here, and so on. So instead of like repeating the same code, of course, we want to create like another component and reuse that code. So that's what we are gonna start right away. Before building the hero itself, it's time actually for us to build the call to action component, okay? That is going to take just one prop, because notice that the button in terms of the UI is the same, but the text is different. This one says join whitex, and this one says also join whitex actually, and this one says start today. So let's do that. So I now need to create this component. So I'm going to go inside components, and to be easy to identify, I call this one CTA, call to action.jsx. As usual, RFC, there you go. And let's build this. I'm actually going to import the icon. That's why we installed React icons earlier, because we have this icon here in all of our buttons. Not the login and sign up, but in our page. Okay? So let's work on that. As I said, this component is actually going to take a prop, and I'm going to call this button text, because it's the text that we need to change for every button. But the button in terms of UI, as I said, it's the same. Okay? So I'm actually gonna build that. So yeah, this can be a div, but I'm gonna style it right away. I want to use BG whitex light green, our custom color. On hover, I want to change this color to BG whitex dark green. Okay. On hover, I want my text to be text whitex white, which is not really a custom color because it's the standard white color, but you can change this to a different tone of white in case you wish that. I'm gonna add a delay of 350. You can look up all of these Tailwind CSS classes. I'm not gonna focus too much on this. Uppercase, okay. The font should be bold. So there you go, font bold. I want the text size to be 1XL. As usual, the buttons should have the cursor pointer to let the user know that this is clickable. The padding X, which is horizontally of 10. I like to give a nice padding, but vertically I just want to give it a 3. I want to give it a rounded corner, so I'm going to say rounded full. I want to use flex box, therefore flex. And I want to align items center. Okay, so whatever content is inside the button is centrally aligned inside the button. Whew. So let me use word wrap so you can see the code. Now inside the button, we do not hard code anything. We want to use this prop. So we can actually copy this like this and pass it as the text of the button, because this is going to change depending on the button and where we use it. And we also want to add our icon that we have imported at the top, and I'm just gonna copy paste this so it's a tiny bit faster. Okay, so we have our call to action button prepared. Now we can use it and reuse it. And the first time it's going to be inside our hero component. So, and I'm gonna need a bunch of imports so I do not mess up. I am going to import. Why is this? Because I'm gonna need to use these icons, so I need to import them, and we need to use the link and all of that. So I'm gonna put it, I'm gonna make this like this. So these imports, I'm gonna basically copy paste right below the use string. That needs to be always at the top when used it. So inside the return, I'm not going to use a div, but I'm going to use a section. Okay, and I'm actually going to remove this. In here, yes, I will have a div, but I'm gonna style this right away so I do not forget. Okay, view wrap so you can see what I'm typing. Cool. And I want to give a margin top of 100 pixels. So the fixed bar does not overlap this. And of course you need to play with these numbers and check all of that. In case you change your navbar, you need to change this. You need to play with this code. I want to have my BG color. Okay, inside this div, I want to, of course, style it first. I want to then give this border that I mentioned it before, this green border, and this border is done by using border T, which stands for top 8, and then border color is going to be border whitex light green. The width is going to be full on smaller screens, but on MD onwards I want the width to be simply 70%, and I'm going to show you the effect right away in case you haven't seen it yet. This is what we are building. Notice that on smaller screens we get the border spanning across, right? And then on smaller screens, on MD breakpoint onwards, so actually bigger screens, the width goes from 100% to just 70% and is centered. Okay, so this is what we are trying to accomplish. So let's continue this. And this div is just for the border itself. Okay, now we need another div. Okay, flex on MD. I want to justify to the center, right? And also on MD, I want items to the center. So we are going to have plenty of divs, right? And this one is like a wrapper for other divs. We'll have plenty of divs nested, so pay attention to where you put these divs, okay? Because now we need to work on this div, and this div is actually responsible for our grid. So we'll be using a grid. So I'm gonna define grid instead of flex. I want to define a grid because I want to use a grid, and I want to set as grid calls 1 So grid calls 1, so my grid starts with only one column, but then on MD onwards, I want to change this grid calls to, and you guessed it, to 2. And on MD, I want to give this grid a gap of 2. And I want to use the MX width, so max width of 7, because this is what we are using. And of course, I want to center align this on larger screens. Okay. The padding is going to be 4 to all sides, but on LG, I want to give a padding vertically of 8. This is tricky. So now we need to go and create another div in here. Hopefully I'm not messing up. It's easy to mess up with all of these divs nested inside each other. But let's hope that I do not mess up. I want to use flex, justify center, and items center. Cool. Now we need to work on another div. Yeah, I told you, plenty of divs nesting. So yeah, you need to pay attention to this. I'm paying attention. Hopefully you are also doing the same thing, because this is quite important. So let's style it, so we don't later style it in the wrong place. Okay. And what else do I need? Now it's time for me to start adding this. So the H1 and all of that. So this is what we are building. So I can go here and I'm gonna add an H1. I'm actually gonna copy paste this so we don't waste much time. This is simple. This is just one H1, and inside the H1 we are passing properties, utility classes. So we change the text size depending on the screen size. Then we have these two spans: buy, trade, and grow. Okay, now we see the result of what we are doing on the screen. So let's continue. So now we see what we are doing, right? Cool. What else do we want? So we now need to add these paragraphs. So I'm gonna actually copy paste them, because there's no point to spend much time on this. So right below my H1, I'm gonna paste my paragraphs that will bring this information. Cool. And now it's time for us to add our call to action button, our custom component that we created earlier. And we'll wrap that with the link component. So right below that, this piece, I'm gonna have my link component. And as we know, and we also can check by hovering the component, this component takes a prop, which is button text. And we are going to actually use this button text to pass the text inside the button, of course. Button text like this, and the text is going to be start, not caps lock. I mean, it's gonna turn into caps lock, but not manually. Start today, and I should see it here. And I want to send this externally to the official website, as I mentioned it. So I click here and I open the official website. So this means I'm gonna copy paste my href, and I'm also gonna copy paste the target blank. So I'm gonna delete this actually and paste this. So now my button will open correctly. Okay, below that we need another div, okay, which is going to be the div that will hold all of these images that we have inside our assets folder, and we have imported it right here. Okay, so yeah, we need it here. So that's what we are doing. And for that, I'm just gonna copy paste this. So this div will hold all of the images that we should see here. Okay, there we go. We see the images. And as you can see, this is quite simple. All I'm doing is I'm using the image component from Next.js. The source is the file that I have here. So for Visa image for the hero component, I just call it Visa and I'm passing the source as Visa. I'm providing an alt tag and I'm providing to all of them the same width and height and the same class name. Okay, quite simple, nothing really complex or impressive, to be honest. So let me see if I do not lose myself in here. So I have this, then I have let me think. So this is the div, this is the div, and then 1, 2 divs. I want to go outside, I want to go in here, and I need to then add the div that will hold the image on the right hand side, because this is what we have, right? So as you can see, this is coming along all nicely. Cool. So let's then bring this image in, and for that I'm just gonna copy paste this bit of code, and in here I'm gonna paste it. So all I'm doing is to create another div, centering it, giving order 1, and then using the image component and passing the usual stuff, because when you have the image component you need to have the source, the alt, the width, then the height. Then I'm styling it. And these classes are actually the classes from Animate CSS library that we added. If you remember, inside our layout we added this add thing and we added this link to the library, and now we are passing these classes. So you need to check the documentation for the library in case you want to understand this a bit better. But I'm just choosing my animation type, then I'm saying there's a delay, and then I'm saying animate it slowly, and I'm saying animate it forever. And as you can see, this is all good, up and running. So a perfect match to whatever we have. Cool. So this means we have finished our hero component, and there's more to come. And the next one is going to be the whiteX card. Okay, so let's continue. The whiteX card component. So we built the hero, and now we have this whiteX card component, which is this part and this part. And if we click here, we are taken to this area. Because this is like one single page website, we use IDs, as you can see here, to navigate to different sections of the page. And if you remember, we added inside the header nav links. As you can see, we have crypto, whiteX card, wallet, and they all point to an ID, which means we need to create a component, and this component will have this ID. In this case, the component will have this specific ID, and this is what allows us to navigate to a specific part of the page by clicking the navigation. So that explanation done, it's time for us to actually build this thing. So we can go inside components and create a new component that is going to be called whiteX card. whiteX card.jsx, and we can of course import this component. So import whiteX card from my components. Inside my components, I want to grab my YX card. I'm gonna duplicate this one, and then I'm gonna copy and paste, and we should see it below. My computer is super slow, but we will see it, trust me. Okay, that out of the way, we can definitely work on this. I'm gonna get rid of this import because we do not need it. There you go, YX card. Took some time, but it's in here. Still saving, doesn't matter. So, excuse me. So let's start this. So in terms of UI, I want to return a section, which is a better thing to go with. And I want to style it. One more time, that ID is actually defined in here. So when we say navigate to, when the user clicks the text, it's going to navigate to YX card. Inside the array, inside the object, we add this symbol, but inside the section, we do not add the symbol, because if you add the symbol like this, it's not going to work. So you just need the text, okay? Hopefully that is clear. Okay, now inside this section, we do need to start building our UI, and for that we need our good friend div, okay? The div, of course, needs to be styled as well. And so on this first div, I want to style it. And I also like to do my styling first, so I don't forget it. I want to give a width full. On smaller screens is at the top, but on larger screens goes to the left. And that means that we need to work with order utility class again. And order is going to be 1, then flex, not like that, flex, and I want to use justify to the center and items center, so I align everything vertically and horizontally. And okay, so let's go and work on the content inside the first div. As I showed you, it's just an image, so this first div is gonna hold just one image. Let me use view word wrap so you see what I'm typing. So an image, okay, the usual, and I'm using this image, okay, the usual thing, and once again I'm passing the same classes for the animation for the image, and we actually can see the image right now. Cool. So the image part is done. So therefore we need to use class and say flex for flexbox, but then flex call to vertically stack things on top of each other. Padding of 5 to all sides, and now we are going to add heading, text and button, okay? Because this is super simple, I'm gonna definitely copy paste. This is super simple, and in the meantime I have made my mind. I will provide you with the code, so I will push this code to GitHub, and I will provide you the GitHub repo, so we'll be able to access to every single bit of this code. Okay, this thing next is, so we are dealing with heading, as we can see, and below that we want to add this text. Oh yeah, I can see already the order is messed up. What if, because see, I should see the image first and then the text underneath, which is what I have here. I think if I remove this, what happens? I'm a bit lost, to be honest. Okay, now I see. Okay, but do I really need this? Because I'm playing with order here. Let me see. Okay, the image left text to the right, and on smaller screens image is at the top. But what happens if I also remove this? I'm just testing, to be honest. I'm not really sure what I'm doing. Okay. Okay, I think this is what I'm looking for. Seems to be working the way I wanted. Sorry for that mistake. Yeah, real development going on. Now, below this P, I need another div that will actually hold the button. And one more time will be, oops, linking externally, as you saw. I clicked it by mistake. So this button. Okay, so I'm actually, I forgot. I'm actually, yeah, doesn't matter. I'm not gonna confuse you. This is not so important, it's just a detail, so I'm gonna put it right here. Just a single div. I'm not really sure if I need a div. Hold on a second. But why? That's not what I want, come on. Yeah, I messed it up with this. This alignment is not good, so I need to check this. Give me a second. I'm sorry for this, but I definitely messed it up, and I actually also forgot to add this class to align in the center on larger screens after I added this class right here, the max width, okay? And I messed up this order thing because, as you can see, I want to invert things on larger screens. So I have on larger screens text, image, and now I wanted image, text, okay? But in any scenario on smaller screens, I want to present the image first and then the rest. Image first and then the rest. So I definitely messed it up and confused myself. Sorry for that, but if you are lost or confused, do not worry, because as I mentioned it, I will be pushing this code to GitHub. Then you will have access to all of this code and you can check it by yourself, okay? So now what we are actually missing, as you can see, is to add the other part below, the other div, because we have the image and the information, we have the image and the information, and we are missing this image here. This div here. And this is going to be our first gradient, and I'm going to show you one approach to gradients, okay? So at the end of the day, what we want to do is this, and I do not want to waste any more time, and I'm gonna actually just copy paste and replace this empty div, okay? And as you can see, I'm not doing anything too confusing or anything. I'm just adding a new section, right? And then, not section, sorry, a new div, right? And then I have another div, and this div, I'm giving like this greenish gradient background color, this way, right? And then I add like a div for the content. Let me just give some room in here so you see it better. I think it's easier for you to read the code. So nothing impressive or that confusing. This first div is responsible for this bit, the icon and this small text. Then I have the heading, which is this one, and the text is here. So nothing really impressive. Just the usual stuff, but me talking, translating, and looking at the screen sometimes gets me confused. But now this is all good. And I'm gonna, of course, show you the functionality in terms of navigation. So if you click white X card, you get here. And this is actually our tutorial, so yeah, it's working. But it's the same in our final project. See? All good, perfect match, perfect clone. Okay, let's continue. And the next component is going to be the crypto back, which is, oops, oh, yeah, wrong. Crypto back, which is this one. And this is what we are going to be building next. So continue watching, and if you are enjoying this tutorial so far, of course, consider subscribing, leaving me a like, and write in the comments below what you think of this type of projects. Let's move on. So the next component in line is the crypto back component. So let's create that one really quickly. So crypto back.jsx, and then rfc, delete this import because we do not need it, and so we don't forget, let's just import crypto back from, not getting any suggestions, so components, then I can navigate to crypto back. Cool. So I can actually copy, duplicate this one, and replace it with this, and this is good to go. So here's the component created, of course, just a basic part of it. And as usual, I'm gonna copy paste my imports, and you know all of these by heart now. And as usual, I'm gonna change this div into a section instead. Inside this, I'm gonna get like one div. Okay, div, not like that. And this div will actually hold two other divs. So div, boom, boom. Cool. This section needs to be styled, of course, the usual stuff. And now let's talk business, okay? This first div, I'm gonna style it right away. Class name. I'm here, so I'm gonna right away also style this one. And with full, it's going to be similar. On MD, I want my my width to be 30, and I want my order to be 2. But on MD, I want my order to be 1, and padding of 5 to all sides. Okay. Now let's really work on the content inside this. Okay, so this is where we are, and I actually deleted localhost 3000. I shouldn't. Localhost 3000. So we see our project, and we are going to do this one, the crypto back. Cool. This is it. Crypto back, cool. So our first div will contain another div. This is where it's confusing sometimes, nesting all of these divs inside of one another, and it's easy to make mistakes, trust me. Class name. Let's see what we have. We're gonna have the text, so the heading. I'm gonna copy paste this. Boom. Then we are gonna have the P, the usual text, and the div. I'm gonna also copy paste this. I'm trying to save time because there's no point for you to see me typing this stuff. You do not learn anything from that, really. So I do not want to waste my time and your time. I want to make sure, yeah, I do not have word wrap. I should. There you go. Now you see what I'm doing. Okay. I'm gonna check the order later because I'm not really sure. I get confused with that. So this one, I need to have like the image, and if we check here, we have the image and we have this bit of text. So we dealt with this already, as you can see here. You can make a little bit more room here so you can really read what's going on. But now we need to add this image and this bit of text inside this image. Sorry, inside this div. So the image, As usual, I'm going to do a copy paste. I'm not going to bother explaining you this. I did this already a few times in this tutorial. And then the H3. Okay, H3. Then I'm going to format my document. Cool. And let's see if this is actually working or not. As usual, my computer is super slow. Let's see, still saving. And I think I messed up the order already. F5, yeah, because I want the image at the top. So I see the image, I see all of the content, but the order is messed up. Oh, and I see another problem. Okay, I need to recheck my code.